Hello, my name is Doug Meyer, or Spike with Rotochopper Customer Service. Today we're going to be changing the hose pump in a color pump. The reason why we'd be changing the color pump hose is because of wear. There are so many cycle lives in a hose like this, and once it's wore out, it will start leaking inside the chamber, or it will not create vacuum anymore inside the pump. Another thing is just preventive maintenance. Either 1 or 2 years is a good timeline to change this pump to stay ahead of it, so we don't have any troubles when you're in the middle of the mulch season. For today's example, we remove the pump from the machine so we can see better how to tighten the hose in there. If it's on the machine, you are able to do it with the machine. And remember, for this demonstration, I'm using an SB10 pump. This is used on a CP or an MP2. Different size machines are going to have different size pumps, so make sure you double check which size pump you have and when you order the right hose. And also it's going to vary a little bit, but the process will be exactly the same between all the different pumps. For tools, we are going to need different sockets for taking the assembly apart, bucket, hose lubricant, and new hose. So the first thing we want to do is unhook the electrical power to the color pump motor. So it's just doing lockout tagout on the machine. So once the power has been isolated, we will need to drain the colorant lube from the pump. And to do that, we need a clean bucket, and we just open the drain line and allow the hose lube to flow out of the pump and into the bucket. For the demonstration, we do not have any lubricant in the pump. After we've removed all the lubricant from the pump, we'll then remove the suction and the discharge pump lines. We have to make sure you keep track of which line goes where, because it can vary from model to model. So make sure that if the discharge line is on top, you put it back on top. You can also take a marker and mark the lines and mark the pump, but make sure those go back in the exact same position. So to get started here, we're going to remove the holding part of the hose. So we just simply have to remove the hose clamps in here. We'll loosen those all the way up. Once those are loose, we'll do the top and the bottom. The other thing we have to do then is take this entire assembly off. So there's 2 screws on each one. I'll remove those. Once these are removed, I can slide the entire part off of there and do the same on the bottom. Now this is the actual hose pump inside there, so once I have that removed, if it's a damaged pump, again, when we're on the machine, now we could turn the power back on and you could start the pump and it will drive the hose right out. In this case, I will do it by hand, and I'll just force it out by turning the pump by hand. When the hose is removed, if we see any bare spots on here or any crushed spots, that indicates it's definitely a bad hose. So then we're gonna get a new hose, and we'll come back and we'll install that. Okay, so we have our new hose and we're ready to reinstall it into the color pump. We'll use the colorant lubricant. The colorant lubricant comes from Rotochopper. It comes from our vendor. If you run into trouble and you do not have this hose lubricant, you can use vegetable oil for a short time. If you need to do that, you certainly can for just in emergencies. But otherwise, it's a Bridell hose lube that we use for that. So before we install the new hose, we're going to take a little bit of this lubricant on our hands, and we're going to make sure we lubricate the hose before we start sliding that in there. And then we can just start pushing the hose in there. Once we start pushing it in, again, if it's hooked up to the motor, you can turn the motor on, but otherwise as we turn this, it will pull the hose in. So now once we have the hose almost all the way through here, we'll finish it off and we'll make the 2 sides even, and then we're ready to install our fittings again. So now they're about even. So I take my clamps again, and these are identical. They can go on the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter. You're gonna want to put a little bit of lubricant on the fitting inside there, and then we can slide everything on here. And then we reinstall our bolts. And we want to tighten these bolts evenly, so we pull that flange in tight and even. So once those are installed, we're going to tighten our hose clamps on here. So once we have everything tight here, we're going to go ahead and install the hose lubricant. Make sure the drain plug is inserted and tight. To add the lubricant, we simply remove the cap, fill it up, and we're going to go above the minimum line on the pump. Depending on the size of your pump, you might need 2 jugs of the oil. Once that's complete, we're going to reconnect our suction and discharge lines to the pump. Make sure that you've kept track of which one goes where, because we do not want to get those mixed up. So they'll go into exact same position they were removed from. And then you can go ahead and turn power back on, and that should be complete. And remember, a well-maintained machine is a safer, more profitable machine. Thank you for choosing Rotochopper for your grinding solutions. And remember to subscribe to our Rotochopper YouTube page.